China is a country in Southeast Asia. China has the world's largest population and fourth largest country in the world. China is bordered by 14 countries. China has 14,500 kilometers of coastline, allowing for ease of access for trade partners. Beijing is the capital of China. However, Shanghai is the country's largest city. China is a member of the World Trade Organization and the G20. Over 50% of the landmass of China is utilized for agriculture. 58% of China's population live in urban areas, and that percentage is increasing at a rate of 2.3% of urbanization. The median age in China is 37, and the life expectancy is 75 years of age. China is a communist nation. The current General Secretary is Xi Jinping, and the current Premier is Li Keqiang. October 18th through 25th, 2017, the twice-a-decade Chinese Communist Party held its 19th Party Congress in Beijing. At this time, new members of the Politburo Standing Committee were announced. However, the event was shrouded with corruption and scandal as 3 members of the party were accused of trying to rig prior elections in 2007 and 2012. As a result, the vote-based recommendation system was abandoned for a consultation mechanism. Let's watch this short video on the structure of the political system in China.
How does China's political system work? China has a unique multi-party cooperation system. It differs both from the pluralist party systems common in the West and one-party systems in use elsewhere. What does this mean in practice? The Communist Party of China, or CPC, acts as the ruling party, but cooperates with 8 other groups to discuss and manage state affairs. The 8 parties are the Revolutionary Committee of the Chinese Kuomintang, China Democratic League, China Democratic National Construction Association, China Association for Promoting Democracy, Chinese Peasants and Workers Democratic Party, China Zhigong Party, Jusan Society, and Taiwan Democratic Self-Government League.
Property rights are the degree to which a country's laws protect private property rights and the degree to which its government enforces those laws. As you can see in the graph, China's property rights have been increasing in recent years, however, still trail behind the U.S. Countries that fall below the 50-point mark are noted to have inefficient court systems that are subject to delays. Corruption may be present and judiciaries may be influenced by other branches of government. The World Bank defines political instability as the propensity of a government to collapse either because of conflicts or rampant competition between various political parties. As you can see depicted in the graph, China does not have a high level of political stability. The World Justice Project defines the rule of law by 4 principles: accountability, just laws, open government, and accessible and impartial dispute resolution. As you can see depicted in the graph, the rule of law in China is lower than average. Transparency International defines corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. The organization has focused on a connection between corruption and inequality, resulting in unequal distribution of power and wealth. In the 176 countries and territories included in the index, the global average was 43. China received a score of 40. The OECD links trust in politicians and the perception of corruption, noting that integrity policies help reinforce high standards of behavior, help reinforce credibility and legitimacy of those involved in policy and decision-making, safeguarding public interest and restoring confidence in the policy-making process. Heritage gives China an overall score of 57.4 on their Economic Freedom Index as compared to the world average of 60.9, noting that China remains mostly unfree. Heritage notes that numerous state-owned enterprises distort the economy and the state maintains a tight grip on the financial system. As you can see in the graph depicted, China has experienced a trade surplus for many years. Trade surpluses are viewed to be favorable and translate into higher standards of living for countries, and the ability of companies to often gain competitive advantage. Often trade surpluses are the result of trade protection policies. In September 2017, China's Minister of Land and Resources called for a reduced trade protectionism and greater collaboration. President Donald Trump campaigned on protectionism and threatened to impose significant tariffs on China exports to the U.S. The Chinese president rebutted the U.S. president's comments, stating the need to seek a win-win through greater openness and cooperation. China has been increasing outflows of FDI. However, changes in the U.S. trade policy may impact FDI outflows and inflows. Gross national income is a measurement of the country's income, including income earned by country's residents both domestically and abroad. As you can see, China's GNI has been increasing steadily over the past 25 years. The Human Development Index is a summary measure of average achievement in key dimensions of human development: a long, healthy life, being knowledgeable, and having a decent standard of living. China ranks 90 on the HDI as compared to the US ranking of 10. As you can see in the graph, China's inflation has typically been higher than the US. However, in recent months, inflation has decreased. Inflation can be caused by a demand pull or cost push. Demand pull occurs when the aggregate demand for goods and services in an economy rises more rapidly than the economy's productive capacity. Cost push occurs when prices of production process inputs increase. The falling inflation rate in China may be a result of falling food costs. The key factors that influence exchange rates include economic uncertainty, political stability and performance, inflation, government debt, interest rate, and terms of trade. As you can see in the graph, the Chinese yuan has historically had a higher exchange rate against the euro when compared to the US dollar. The tax burden impacts the attractiveness of a country for business investments. As you can see, China has historically had a high tax burden except for a period that dipped between 2002 and 2009. Business freedom is an overall indicator of the efficiency of government regulations of a business. SCORE is based on a 10-factor model that includes data points relating to starting a business, obtaining a license, and closing a business. China scores 53.9, which translates to mostly unfree.
Let's dissect what's hurting China's economy. Bloated state-owned companies, swelling public and private debt, massive overcapacity in the property market and heavy industry, and that is just the start. Add an aging population, lack of innovation, environmental degradation, and deep-rooted corruption. The battle to contend with these challenges is playing out in different ways across China's 31 provinces, from the rich coastal regions to the Rust Belt northeast. And no one knows all of this better than Chinese leaders. So here's the situation. In 2013, China completed a once-in-a-decade transfer of power. Xi Jinping replaced Hu Jintao as president and promised to reform and rebalance the economy. Under Xi's leadership, the government abandoned the one-child policy, cracked down on bribe-taking, and sped up steps to make the currency more tradable. But then this happened. The economy ran out of steam. Last year, growth slowed to 6.9%, its weakest pace in a quarter century, as the shift from exports and manufacturing to services and consumption took its toll.
The Chinese population is grouped into 4 social classes. Education often has been considered a mechanism for mobility within the class system. China has historically experienced a relatively low unemployment rate. The low unemployment rate may be supported by state-owned enterprises and low wage rate driven by foreign direct investment. China's birth rate has stabilized since 2007. China has a long-standing law related to one child per household. Since this law has been lifted, it is expected that the birth rate will increase. The majority of China's population identifies as Han Chinese. The majority of China's population identifies with folk religions. When analyzing China based on Hall's methodologies, China is identified as having a high-context society, thus increasing the importance of nonverbal cues. When analyzing China based on Globe's methodology, China is noted to have a high propensity for uncertainty avoidance, future orientation, and power distance. In the PISA studies, China scored above average in science and math. China falls below average for social background. While the majority of Chinese speak Mandarin, many other languages are spoken in China.
China's spending on research and development has been steadily increasing. This is due to the fact that China has established policies to promote more innovation in which companies have upped their investments into research and development. Although the US still rests above China in R&D spending as a share of GDP, China, the number 2 ranked economy in the world, looks to raise that percentage to 2.5 by 2020, which should start to rival the US spending in R&D. The Environmental Performance Index, or EPI, provides a global view of environmental performance and country-by-country metrics to inform decision-making. Launched at the World Economic Forum, the EPI is in its 15th year and more relevant than ever to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and carry out the recent International Climate Change Agreement. The EPI ranks countries' performance on high-priority environmental issues in 2 areas, which are the protection of human health and protection of ecosystems. Regarding China, their overall EPI ranks at 109 out of 180 countries, while the US ranks 26. The legal system of the People's Republic of China is defined by the government as a socialist legal system. Despite the official definition, however, China's legal system is based primarily on the model of civil law. The Constitution of the People's Republic of China is the highest law within China. The current version was adopted in 1982 with further revisions in 1988, 1993, 1999, and 2004. There are 4 levels of the court system in China: the grassroots, intermediate, high, and supreme people's court, in addition to special courts such as the military, maritime, railway, and forestry courts. China's intellectual property rights index score increased by 0.3 to 5.71, placing it 9th in the Asian and Oceanian region and 52nd in the world. China is classified by the IMF as part of the Emerging and Developing Asian Group and by the World Bank as an upper middle income country. Compared to the United States, IPRI score increased by 0.34 to 8.07, placing it 2nd in North American region and 14th in the world. The United States is classified by the IMF as part of the Advanced Economies Group and by the World Bank as a high-income country.
China's strengths are technological advances and patents, shifts to a market-based economy, increasing trade freedom, and above-average PISA scores in several categories. China's weaknesses are protection of intellectual property rights and copyright, environmental performance, rule of law, political instability, and investment in economic freedom. Opportunities in China include the growing consumer market due to increase in household income, technological development, and enhancements in agricultural technology to meet growing demands. Threats to China include decline of FDI inflow, shift to a more economical labor-based goods market, recent trade threats from the U.S., and military threats from other sources.